Okay, thanks everybody for coming out this afternoon and for this fabulous film. It's a Wonderful Life. Tony told me about something that we had seen in the newspaper, and I'll just quote a little bit from it. Why we love it. Director Frank Capra's classic is the ultimate Christmas movie, Arnold says. It fully embraces the highs and lows of the season. We tend to remember it for the joy, but it hits so many emotions. And realizing the importance of his family is so relatable. Another fun fact, the film flopped, leaving Capra $525,000 in debt to the RKO movie studio. And the famous quote from that film is that every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings. And I was hoping today that instead of me or Hal doing all the talking, that I would do a little introduction about something, and then I would love you to give your comments and contributions. How's that sound? Good? All right. So one of the things I found when I was doing a little research on this is that there's 10 great life lessons that are learned from this classic Christmas movie. And I'm going to start out with that. One of them is that you should not compare yourself to others. George often compares himself to Sam Wainwright, a very successful friend. Sam is initially his competition for Mary, but George wins her heart. However, he remains jealous that wealthy Sam left Bedford Falls behind to do, quote unquote, important things. Meanwhile, George's brother Harry becomes a World War II war hero, and George sits between these two, neither rich nor glorious. George doesn't see what he has that others do not, like his wife Mary and his family's love, which are worth so much more than any actual currency or fame that anyone else may possess. So would any of you like to comment about that, about comparing ourselves to others and how it relates to this film, or anything else that you'd like to discuss about the film?
Go ahead.
It's a hard comparison because there's no, I mean, I feel really sorry for George. I always have. Here, I mean, yes, he has the love of his family and he has a family, but he's living Mary's version of what life should be. He didn't want the house. He wanted to travel. He wanted to do so many things, and they're not mutually exclusive with a happy marriage and family. So I always felt very sorry for George.
Don't forget the job. He's stuck in this
Job that he doesn't want.
Job that he doesn't want.
And I give him credit for deciding that what he has is enough. But I feel sad for him that he can't. I mean, we grew up in a generation of, can you have it all? And his dreams weren't that unreasonable. But he was a bit of a, he could have told his brother, yes, you go work for the building and loan. It's my turn to go to college. But he didn't. And I guess those were choices he made where he could have had a chance to have more and do more, but there were a few cases where he just didn't.
Yep.
He was the air raid warden. He was the tire drive person for the war. He was, he was everywhere. He's the draft board.
No, that was Potter.
He was on it too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was.
He was just doing everything for everybody else, for their welfare, and he really sacrificed some of his dreams for other people.
Yeah, and he didn't count that as a credit to himself. He did.
Right.
For granted. Yeah.
Also, despite the fact that It's a Wonderful Life was produced during a time when Hollywood censors required punishment for movie villains, the greedy bank Potter gets away with his theft of $8,000. Life's villains could be people, financial problems, natural disasters, or illness, and these often cannot be corrected or reversed. Like George Bailey, it's important to rise above these issues. In the end, technically, Potter wins, since no one discovers that he stole the money. However, George's life isn't ruined because of what happens at the end, that the town does raise the money needed. And more importantly, his perspective changes. Another one of the life lessons that's talked about is that great sacrifice leads to great reward. Throughout George's life, he has big dreams, and we talked about it, Bar, that he's constantly forced to sacrifice. His father, he puts others first. When he's a kid, he sacrifices part of his hearing while saving drowning Harry. Following his father's death, he sacrifices his trip abroad. He takes over the building and loan. He gives the college money to Harry. He even plans a glorious honeymoon with Mary, but ultimately has to use that money for the customers. So all of those sacrifices make him feel like he can't get ahead, and ultimately he uses the money for customers in need after the building and loan goes broke. And all of those things make him feel that he can't get ahead and ultimately cause him to become bitter. These sacrifices mean something because in the hour of his greatest need, the community did sacrifice for him, and they help him out. Anybody want to comment about that life lesson about great sacrifices can lead to great reward? Anybody want to comment on that one? One of the life lessons. How about realizing your blessings, realizing our blessings? We've had Thanksgiving, and now we have Hanukkah and the Festival of Lights. What about our blessings? Anybody want to comment about that life lesson? What about character being more important than cash? Character being more important than cash. Anybody want to comment on that one?
I'll take a shot at it,
Go
Francine.
for it, Gary.
Character always counts. All right. But a little love coming your way also counts. And George pushed everything away. That was his problem. He sacrificed everything for everybody else and left nothing for himself. And that was his problem. So it was easy to see why he fell into despair when the problem with the money being gone cropped up. Now we know definitely from the movie that Mr. Potter pushed whatever the records off to the behind the bookcase, and probably will never be found until they clean out the place. But you're right, he stole the money. But George found that he was responsible. There is such a thing as being too responsible. I had that problem when I was working because I answered the challenge that came from every other department. And so my boss named me the big mouth bass because I'd bite at anything. So I think one of the life lessons you have to learn is you got to save something for yourself.
Yeah, when you're trying to do so much, you have to learn to say no at some point.
Cal?
Didn't his issues begin with the very first scene of the movie where he felt like he had to be his brother's keeper, and he took on that responsibility, and from then on that was his impetus for his almost all of his other motivations,
Right.
that he felt responsible.
They had all those shovels laying around, and he dove in the water instead of using a shovel. I don't I don't know.
I I think there were some places where George was right to sacrifice. I mean, to not save his brother and let him drown over, I mean, I can't fault him for that. And I, once he's got the building and loan going and there's a run on the bank, I can see where he, needed to step up. But there were so many other places where he had other choices that could have been made, and he chose one thing or another. I originally hated the fact that Potter got away with the theft, and then I thought that was, the world is like that. So and that was really, the truth, that we have to realize that sometimes the bad guys win, and you still have to look for what makes your life rewarding and satisfying.
Is it definitive that Potter wasn't a contributor at the end?
Yeah.
I asked myself that. I mean, that's an open question, right?
I don't think he showed up in the scenes.
No.
His family.
So getting back to this relationship between those two men, one of the other life lessons is that integrity matters. So Potter noticed that George's business, while only modestly profitable when he set up those homes for the people to live in that community, is growing. So he offers him an assistant job. The job comes with a great salary and the opportunity for George to fulfill his dreams and travel. George flips over the opportunity and takes Potter's hand to shake it, but at the very last moment, he realizes something, that he's about to sell his soul to the devil. And he realizes that Potter would own Bailey Park and probably shut it down when he takes over and all of that. So, that was a situation where he did show all of that, the integrity that, he wasn't going to sell his soul to the devil. And, he was going to be there for the people. Can you think of any other situations like that currently, or things that have come up, in this time that we're living through?
We see a lack of it in some of the things that happen in Washington.
Yeah,
Principles seem to have gone by the wayside for certain members of Congress.
Yeah. And accountability, any kind of accountability for, you can just say or do almost anything and, oh, okay, that's okay. No scruples, no scruples at all, right?
Francine, Tony has her hand up.
Tony, what would you like to
Yeah,
say?
I'm not talking politics, just emotions. Potter elicited the same emotions for me as Trump did, because he was so despicable. There wasn't any Rachmanis, there was no compassion in anything he did. And I got the feeling as the movie progressed that George, recalling how cruel Potter had been when he tried to take the bank over from George's dad before his dad had the heart attack, it was like George was going to prove himself to be a person of character and a better man than Potter. But that wouldn't have taken much from the way Potter was displayed in the film, because when George's dad said to Potter in the beginning, we're talking about families who are trying to buy their own homes. And Potter just flipped that all off, you know?
Mhm.
So I just thought, whatever George did, he had a high bar set from himself to be compassionate and productive in ways that Potter wasn't. It was almost like Potter was the low bar and George just wanted to do everything good for the entire community the way Potter wanted to do everything bad.
Yep.
Sometimes I think both extremes have their problems. And of course, Potter just had complete disdain for human kindness and the welfare of anybody else except for himself. And he looked his nose down at George. But at the same time, George, he made a choice to take care of others, but then you're sacrificing yourself the way he did it. So
Potter was such a evil villain.
he really, yeah.
And you sort of, there's one comment by George about, you have all the money you need, you couldn't possibly spend all the money you have.
Right.
And here's a man, approaching the twilight of his years. And I would say 99% of the people of the world, even bad guys, are looking to what their legacy is. And Potter could care less. And I never understood that part of it. He was just such a habit of being a mean, miserly person. He just couldn't see anything else.
George,
Well, we
with
still have people like that. I mean, to me, people who have billions and billions of dollars could afford to feed people who don't have food in this country, and there wouldn't be as much poverty or hunger. All the children and families who go without. So I think it becomes hedonistic sometimes. They just need the money.
I've forgotten who said the line. Maybe it was just the interpreter, one of the angels or something. But the line was when victory in Europe occurred, we went to church and we cried, and then in
Victory in
victory in Japan, VJ Day, we went to the church and we cried. The character. These people were humans. I mean, they showed their true
Colors.
spirit, I think. Yeah.
So the person who wrote this, information that I gathered, gave an example of 5 times that George was wonderful and 5 times that he was not. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about that. George could have easily blamed Uncle Billy for losing the $8,000, but instead he bears the burden himself. When he tells Potter he lost the $8,000, Potter, who knows Uncle Billy lost it, replies, "You lost $8,000?" And he's shocked that George is admitting to something that he didn't do. Later, George flips out in front of Mary and the children. She could have left him, but instead she rallied support to help him, and in the end shows grace to a man who gave it to so many others. And that scene with the children watching him, that really upset me a lot, that particular scene. And then the other scene that just bothered me, which was because the movie's so dated, it's a very, very old film, was the scene where she's hiding behind the bush because she lost her bathrobe. That one, yeah, but that just goes to show, how things over the years, and also with the housekeeper, the cook, where with her coming and he said, "Well, come closer," like the eavesdropping on the conversation. That was a little bizarre. How about all of you? Were certain things in the film disturbing to you, or you affected by them at all?
Mm-mm. No.
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 I think it's clearly a period piece.
Yes.
You have to accept it for the fact that it is a period piece. That I mean, the implications about Violet with, she was a loose woman, but how loose she was, they weren't going to tell us, right?
Back to Potter. He actually not only does he know that he's got the money, but he says, are you gambling? Is that how you lost the money, because you're gambling? Is it because of women? I know. So not only does Potter sit on the truth, but he actually accuses him of ways that he could have lost the money.
Trying to get a confession out of him
Yeah,
about something.
yeah. I would like to talk about just a little sidebar. Emil Gower, the druggist, he's, in the early film, he's crying, he's drinking because he lost his son, Robert. He lost his son in the pandemic, in the influenza pandemic of 1918, 19, whatever. And I guess they lost about 200,000 people in that particular pandemic. I think we've far surpassed that. I think we're at 500,000.
We're well over 500,000.
500,000 people. But just as a little aside, Capra himself, I think he threw this in here. I'm sorry? Capra himself caught influenza in 1919. It was pretty much at the end of the epidemic, and it wasn't a severe case, but interesting.
Yeah.
From our perspective, on this thing.
My dad's mom and sister died during the pandemic in 1918.
Francine?
Yes,
And
Dennis.
Hal, I don't know the answer to this question, but it kind of follows from what we've been talking about. You mentioned that the film was not a success at first, at least not financially. And I wonder about its reputation over the years. I mean, obviously it's very popular. It's continued to be popular.
Yes.
But
Yes.
anything about its reputation waxing and waning with trends in society? And I was curious also if any of your kids like the film and how it.
Can I comment a little bit on that?
Please do, David.
Okay, so the film was released in 1946 because they wanted to get under the wire for the Academy Award. And unfortunately, it went head to head with The Best Years of Our Lives, which was a blockbuster.
It was a story about men returning from
March.
men returning from World War II and readjusting to civilian life.
If they had delayed to 1947, it would have gone head to head with Miracle on 34th Street, which would have been a very interesting battle. The two Christmas movies, the two at that time. Yeah. So, Dennis, my understanding is that in about 1970s, the license expired that kept that movie from being shown in the public domain, and they never renewed it, and therefore it became watched by many more people because it was for free to the broadcasters year after year from that time on. So I think it was just available, and it was, people liked it because it was the way it was.
But something appealed to people about it that changed in the 25, 30 years between 1946 and the 1970s. And
You asked about our kids. I don't know if our kids have ever seen it. So that answers the question about whether or not they like it. I mentioned it to both of them this afternoon, and neither one commented. So I'm going to ask again if they remember seeing it, what they thought about it. I have to say that I'm not nostalgic for period pieces like this. And although I watched it very closely, it was probably not probably was the first time probably in the last 40 years. I don't recall seeing it other than maybe in my teens or early 20s. So I haven't, and I know it's on every year. I know it's on multiple times, especially during this time of the year. But I've never felt nostalgic about it or any of that, any of the movies of that genre. But I have to say, I don't want to put a damper on things, but I was a little bothered by the misogyny that it displays, and a little bit of racism. And it's hard for me to get past when I see those things, to pay closer attention to the details and the messages that the movie was originally trying to portray, or the screenplay was originally trying to portray. I'm a little overly sensitive about the subliminal messages that the pictures send. And so that's how I felt about it. I did appreciate seeing it again and renewing the story in my memory, but those things kept coming up and slapping me in the face. I don't know how anyone else feels about that.
Hal, there was one scene, Francine asked if there was any scenes that really bothered me. And the scene where a young Mary comes into the ice cream part, the part where she can get ice cream,
Drugstore.
the drugstore, and the young George Bailey calls her stupid because she doesn't want coconuts. And that was gratuitous. And it really showed a side of somebody who's kind of mean-spirited, who isn't very kind to people. And it was so out of character, I couldn't figure out why it was there. It was just, it was thoroughly, that was the one scene that really got me angry.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the chauvinism of it too.
Yeah. It was an attitude that was kind of prevalent throughout, and it was subtle, and who knows if anyone really noticed it when they had seen it for the first time, or when it originally was released, or in the 70s even. But I'm sensitive to it now, and so that kind of clouded my viewing of it just a few days ago.
Yeah. The idea of the film with the public domain part, I originally taped the movie off some channel on one TV, but I wanted to watch it on a different TV, so I went to Prime, and I was expecting to pay maybe a couple bucks, and I was surprised that it was free. And also you could see it either in black and white or in color. And that also surprised me. And again, that it was free. So, I mean, that was a good thing, but at the same time. Now you brought up Miracle on 34th Street, and that one, I haven't seen it in a long time, but that's Natalie Wood, right? Natalie Wood, yeah. And Natalie Wood was a person to me who was gone way too soon, and I just adored her. And so, yeah, when I get sad thinking about that she, didn't get to have that life, a long enough life, But yeah, that's a Christmas movie that I enjoyed always watching. Yeah. Now another thing that's interesting, I don't know how many of you are watching this Beatles one, Get Back? Anybody watching that yet? Anyway, it's in 3 parts, and each part is like 2.5 hours. And Hal and I, I can't watch it because I don't even understand what they're saying. So then our daughter was over yesterday, and she said, well, Mom, you can put the subtitles up. So she showed us how to do that, whatever. But it's still, to me, it's like torture, because what it is it's them figuring out how to, that like they're rehearsing through their songs to make them good. I just want to hear them when they're good. I don't have that 2.5 hours of patience for each to sit through that. And so sometimes I think, it's like a generational thing. What we have patience for and what we are interested in now, being high neighbors, and what things maybe not so much. Yep, somebody was gonna.
Our children have watched it because it's a popular film in our household. But I think when I talk to younger people, they really like the Christmas. What was that Christmas story about
Christmas story, yeah.
Ralph wanting that
BB gun.
BB gun, Red
Nice.
Ryder. And I think that appeals much more to our children's generation. I guess it's more personal, and it's something that a lot of them can identify with more than, I don't know.
I still like A Christmas Story, not The Christmas Story.
Christmas Carol.
Christmas Carol,
Carol.
Mhm.
which is also a time shifter in the same, this is what will happen. Really like that.
I like White Christmas. It's just, I like the music, but they're all kind of corny. I'm kind of tired. I used to watch Wonderful Life all the time, but I'm kind of tired of it now. It's getting a little worn out. And I was just reading on Wikipedia, it got all kind of awards. It's considered one of the top 100 films that have ever been made. And that was Jimmy Stewart's favorite and Frank Capra's favorite. So there you go.
I have to say, I love Donna Reed in it.
Yeah.
Donna Reed and Jimmy Stewart both grew up in small towns. And Lionel Barrymore, who's Potter, of course, had a bet with this 4-H girl, Donna Reed, about whether she could milk a cow, and she did. She won the bet. I don't know how much money was at stake, and I hope Potter paid up.
Did you recognize Alfalfa from?
Yeah.
He was from our gang. Yeah.
Yeah.
We all grew up with that. Yeah.
We're so old.
Well, yeah, I thought the central part of the movie was when George tried to find his life after he no longer existed.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he got the rude awakening. And that, I think, was the central lesson of the movie, that everybody has a part to play.
And I think that's something that all of us sort of wonder. What difference have we made in this world?
Exactly.
And I think that's a really universal question. And, George got a blessing. He got to see what difference he actually made in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
What difference would he might have made if he had agreed to the deal that he was offered, instead of not shaking his hand and endeavoring to make Potter a better person and a better humanitarian? If he had accepted the job, that would have changed everything, possibly. But that's a movie that no one would have seen, maybe.
Well, you do have to learn to accept yourself, good and bad, and appreciate yourself and feel that you're worthwhile. And maybe that's what he learned.
Mm-hmm.
He could appreciate himself, and that it was okay.
It's interesting that Mary went out to ask for the money. George didn't think of that or whatever. He was clearly a town favorite. Everyone was praying for him,
But he clearly, I keep, one of the things that I thought about is George Bailey is probably the only real estate developer who didn't get rich developing real estate.
Could be.
He probably had a difficult time dealing with money. I don't know.
Was not a businessman. That's what Potter said. His dad wasn't, and apparently he wasn't either.
The deals were too good for the home buyers.
Yeah.
I-
Yeah.
They
Crazy.
wouldn't have been able to have those homes otherwise, if, that was part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, there probably was a happy medium somewhere, but I think you're right, Francine. It was, yeah.
Tony?
It's interesting to me that this movie was a financial loss when it was made, and yet it's on the list of the 100 finest films created. And if I understand the financing and logistics of all this, nobody ever reaped the benefits of the success of this film because they let the rights and the copyright and all the other things expire. And you think about the films like that, the moneymakers like Gone with the Wind and Star Wars. People are reaping royalties on infinitum from those. I mean, Star Wars put so many people on the map, and it's still because people, followers, watch all, what is they up to 5 episodes now or something? They watch it over and over and over again because they're so hooked into it. But I read a couple things about the actual making of this movie that were interesting to me. The Bailey housing development that was shown there actually was the beginning of a housing building area in Lockenyada, Flint Ridge.
Mhm.
All of the movie except the bridge scene was filmed in California.
Mhm.
And that was kind of interesting to me because one thing that I read in the LA Times last week, which I tried to research a little more but couldn't, said that the actual Bailey house was one of the old houses in the Encino area that has since been torn down.
Mhm.
So it for me, who grew up in this area, it's nostalgic to hear about all these places and how they were weaved into this classic film.
I found out when I was a kid, my parents sent me to a day camp that used the Beverly Hills High School campus for day camp. And David informed me that the scene in the gym where the Beverly Hills High, I swam in that pool.
The pool that was under the building, that
Yes.
the floor opened up and everybody went swimming. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's interesting to see some of these movie sites that are so local to, or familiar to some of us.
I was just looking up to see what some of the early reviews said about the movie. And I found a review in Variety from 1946, December. It's a Wonderful Life will enjoy just that at the box office and eminently deserves to do so. In the wake of the billowing ballyhoo which has preceded the first entries from Liberty Films, will come a resurging word of mouth to accelerate the whirring of theater's wickets. After a somewhat clammy cycle of psychological pick and tortured trend of panting propaganda vehicles, this April air wholesomeness and humanism of this natural brings back vividly the reminder that essentially the screen best offers unself-conscious and forthright entertainment. It sounds like Variety really liked it in 1946.
But nobody else did.
Apparently nobody else did. I'll see if I can find another one.
I was amused that it was made in 1946 because that's the year Mark and I were born. And I found the enhancement of the color very surprising when we started watching the film, we thought, how can an RKO film in 1946 have such vivid color? And then Mark says it has to be restored, and then at the end, you saw that it was an entirely different company that did the color restoration to
I
it.
thought that I don't usually like colorized, but I thought it added a lot to this movie.
It was very well done.
Yeah, well, I started watching it in black and white on one TV. And then when Hal and I watched it together, I started again from the beginning with the color. And I did prefer the color, definitely.
Yeah, there's some films that lend themselves to black and white that fit into the whole overall feel of it. But when I was given the choice, I said, you know what, you want it to be as bright and colorful and as vibrant as it can be, because it's called A Wonderful Life. So yeah, I don't want to watch it in black and white if I don't have to.
I could not have imagined watching that house that Mary so painstakingly restored in black and white. I think it would look like a haunted house, even after she was finished in black and white.
I agree.
Trying to find another review, but
Anybody like Clarence?
How it's grossed since the 1970s, how well it's done. I mean, the networks obviously wouldn't be airing it as much as they do if it didn't make some money.
Yeah.
Clarence was adorable.
Yes, he was.
And he added a certain amount. I think
It's humor.
the humor was necessary, because in reality, this is a story about a man reaching a crisis and how he deals with it. And
Suicide. Let's call it what it is.
yeah, he's ready to commit suicide.
Yeah, Thomas.
He did a great job.
Yeah.
I did find it a little bit cheesy at the beginning, though, when they had these little stars up in the skies running around as if they're talking to each other. I think that probably could have been done with a little bit more panache.
Ernie
Uh,
Kovacs wasn't available. How many recognize that name?
I do.
Capra made a decision not to age the actors when they were adults. They went through obviously a number of years together, and yet they didn't use makeup to make them look older. He made that decision.
Interesting.
I thought there was a scene where the mother got older and younger. I'll have to go back and see it.
They went from kids to the way they were.
Yeah, but is that true about the mom, Ma Bailey? Because there was one scene where she definitely
You're
looked
talking about
really old.
Zuzu Pitts?
No, Ma Bailey, George's mom.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Zuzu Pitts.
Is that
the
who played
actress.
it?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. No. She always looked that way.
Francine and I were talking about during this scene where they were reviewing his life as if he hadn't existed. And Donna Reed, Mary, was walking out of the library. We both thought, well, they didn't really make her look that different except to pull her hair back and put a pair of glasses on her. She looked like the same person. She didn't age or look any different because she had spent her life alone.
Yeah, movie stars usually don't like to be made to look ugly. They want to look as beautiful as they can. Takes a very secure actress, and probably it's true of more modern day actresses than the old film stars, who are willing to put on makeup to make themselves look old or haggard or harried, I would think.
Anybody else? No. All right, then. I think
Francine, I gotta ask, did you like the movie or not?
not so much. No, I don't know. I'm trying to, I would like to find more funny things to watch.
Mhm.
Yeah,
We watched My Cousin Vinny last.
Yeah,
again.
that's
last
funny.
night.
That's,
Oh, that's a great movie too.
I
You know-
think in February, we're gonna do Shalom Tango, and that's supposed to be funny.
I will have to look for one of my favorite Jewish film movies is a I call it my big fat Mexican Shiva, but that's not the title of it. But it's
It's my Mexican.
my
shiver.
Mexican Shiva or something. It's a hysterical movie about a family going through the process of sitting Shiva with a bunch of very strange characters. But if I'll see if that's available. One thing I was going to also mention to this group is I don't know what it would cost, but my son in Bloomington, Indiana, wanted to see a movie, and he got together with another family, and they were able to rent an entire auditorium at apparently a reasonable cost because they're not wealthy, and just have it for their two families without feeling like they were being exposed to the whole world.
Oh.
And I'm sort of tempted to call up the Lemley and find out what that might cost if this group thinks, instead of going out and being with a crowd of people, our group alone could rent a theater for let's say an early afternoon matinee where the theater wouldn't really have a lot of customers.
Barbara, Leslie is on that, I think. She's
Yeah.
been talking about that. Maybe when she emerges from her golf tournament, but
Okay.
she'd actually brought that up at some point. So.
Yeah, we
Michelle
haven't,
Levi will be
Great idea.
over on Monday.
yeah, we haven't been to the movies yet because of, everything with the COVID. Yeah. That sounds like that might be a good thing to think about for sure.
Maybe we do it 1 month or something and see yeah. I'll see if I can find my Mexican Shiva. It's hysterical. Even if we don't discuss it as a group, I'll send it out to everyone. It's very funny.
Okay.
Thanks.
What was that
Thank you,
Mexican
Barbara.
something?
Shiva,
Oh, we're talking about,
a movie.
wait, is that Shiva Baby or?
No, that's a different one. I don't think that's the right title of it.
Well, we do have another movie coming up for, I'm pretty sure January, right? Someone is there's gonna be a movie.
Ingrid and Jay are gonna do a Netflix series in January.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Has anybody watched that one? What is it?
I have
It's
something.
called clickbait.
Yeah.
What's the name of it?
Clickbait.
It's wonderful, fabulous.
It explores how people can be fooled using the computer.
Oh,
The January.
See where you can get it.
Yeah, January is the Netflix series hosted by Ingrid. Yes,
Thanks.
And what's the series?
it's called Clickbait
Ah,
On Netflix.
on Netflix, and it's a very interesting series. Essentially, there's a murder that's involved, and an individual gets accused, but he's already dead, and they try to unravel that. They try to unravel the family, and then there's a surprise ending. I won't give away no spoiler alert.
so hopefully over the holidays, when there's not so much happening, people will have time to watch it.
Yeah, it's
That was our program committee's theory. Hopefully we're right.
the movie is called My Mexican Shiva.
Yes.
It's very funny.
it's a 2007 movie. I just pulled it up. See if I still have it.
On anything?
So do you want to do that in
Make it March.
March or April?
Is it streamable or is it just listed? I didn't.
Let me look again. It is, let's see, It's an hour and 43 minutes. And I don't know what it is on. It doesn't say what platform it uses. It's on Prime. Amazon Prime has it.
Okay.
Very funny.
Okay.
Well, thank you all for coming this afternoon.
Thank you, Francine.
It
Thank
was
you,
nice.
Hal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Francine
Good
and
job.
Hal.
Oh,
Happy
Great.
Hanukkah, everyone.
See you Sunday, 3
Happy Hanukkah.
o'clock,
See you
TBH.
Sunday.
See you Sunday.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank